light novels, not to be confused with Runove. They're basically just Japanese YA books, but instead of the target demographic being women who love reading dog shit because it's horny and a little morally ambiguous, but not in an interesting way, the target demographic is incel. I'm just kidding. The medium is wide and varied as the young adult literature umbrella can be. Monogatari is as much of a light novel as The Strange Case of Origami Yoda. Today I'll just talk about light novels I've read and whether I like them or not and stuff, so if you enjoy, please like, comment and subscribe. Okay, we start off with I'm in love with the Villainess. I watched the anime while it was airing, but I didn't really vibe with it. I thought it was missing something, so I switched to the manga. And I still didn't vibe with it, so I thought maybe the source material is the best choice, as it always is. So I read the light novel and I don't like the light novel. This one's about a woman who reincarnates as the protagonist of a fictional otome game, and she's also in love with the Villainess.
He said it! He said it!
Honestly, I think this one just fails at being an interesting or well-written story. It's hard for me to explain why I don't like this one. It's a very abstract feeling based on nothing but the way the story is written and told. Like, the words that form the sentences that make the paragraphs that shape this novel, that's my problem. That sounded very pretentious. The prose just lacked something I can't put into words.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
I never felt like I was in the world of I'm in love with the Villainess I did when I read something like, I don't know, The Final Empire. These aren't issues exclusive to I'm in love with the Villainess though. They're present in a lot of amateur fiction works, but that doesn't mean I enjoy reading poorly told stories. I'll give it this. Because it talks about issues gay people face, it feels more gay than most yuri manga out there. Yeah, that's all the props I can give this one. Well, I guess it can be a cute series at times, and I like Claire's character development. Also, it's pretty good when it's being a slice of life type of series that sometimes talks about serious issues, kinda like something you'd see on Nick at Night. Maybe I don't hate this one as much as I thought. I have actual issues with the story itself though, mainly that despite the unsubtlety by which it presents its themes, there's no like actual conflict or anything. Or well, there's no interesting ways that the conflicts are resolved. I'm not saying I want Pluto but lesbian. All I'm saying is that this novel would be much better if it had actual stakes, you know, more meat to its bone. Also, I thought the way incest was treated in this story was a little weird. Not like I can really complain considering that some of the light novels I'll talk about in a bit have incest in them and worse. But instead of turning into like a debate topic like this one does, it's the author's very open fetish. Okay, next up is Jobless Reincarnation or Mushoku Tensei. I made a video on my thoughts on this one, which is unlisted because it was ass. It's about this dude who sucks as a person. He's an anonymous. He literally skips his parents' funeral to jack off. So then he dies, gets reincarnated into another world, decides to become a better person, and does so while stumbling along the way, but ultimately ending up better than he was on Earth. And also, he's a pedophile. And also a little weird towards women. Frankly, with all due respect to the author, I don't think having an anime pervert as your protagonist and never really addressing the, let's just say, problematic aspects of being an anime pervert is very good writing, especially when your series is about self-improvement. Not saying Rudius has to be quoting Jane Austen after immolating himself or accidentally looking at a woman with anything but reverence. Now, I'll be completely honest and say that it's a long series. I have not read far enough into this series for me to see if he does change his ways. So maybe in the future Rudius reflects on his actions and he's like, damn, I was a sex pest when I was younger. I should put myself on the sexual assaulters registry to atone. Though I kinda doubt it, to be honest. Mushoku Tensei is written like if Zack Snyder wrote an Isekai story inspired heavily by JRPGs and Eurogames he misunderstood. They tried to be gritty and realistic by trying to deconstruct all the tropes and shit like what he tried to do with the DCEU. All he managed to do was have half of the male cast be part of the list, if you know what I'm saying. Unlike Zack Snyder's movies, at least Mushoku Tensei is fun to watch, though sometimes it takes itself way too seriously and feels like the most pretentious garbage out there, to the point I wanted to smash my monitor whenever something dumb happened. Alright, next up. That time I got reincarnated as a slime. The premise of this one is self-explanatory. A dude dies and gets reincarnated as a slime. Also, he starts a kingdom and becomes a really overpowered dude, or well, slime. I have mixed feelings on this one. On one hand, it's just fantasy slop, but on the other hand, I just love fantasy. It's a pretty cool series that hits all the right spots for me and my tastes for power fantasy, but on the other hand, it's really boring. There really is no stakes because the characters are super broken, and when it tries to be about politics and all that, there's also no stakes because the characters are not only super powerful, but the world itself bends around them. I don't have much to say beyond that. It's pretty cool and alright, nothing special, and but it's good enough that I bought a volume of this one when I had money. Alright, last up, Ascendance of a Bookworm. Funnily enough, this one is the only one I haven't checked the anime for because it looks kind of bad. I'm not even gonna lie. Ascendance of a Bookworm is a pretty standard Isekai story with similarities to all the other Isekai light novels I've discussed today. You thought I didn't structure this video correctly? Just like Mushoku Tensei, our protagonist gets into an accident before getting reincarnated into another world. Though unlike Mushoku Tensei, Rosemine isn't a fucking disgusting human being nor part of the Epstein list, nor interested in romance. Matter of fact, it's kind of a recurring thing. She's not really into the idea of romance until the tail end of the story where she realizes she's into this one dude who I won't spoil the identity of, but let's just say it's a controversial pick. Most importantly, just like Rudius, she likes kids. Well, not like that. She likes kids in the same way a normal person would, you know? She finds them cute and stuff. Also, unlike Rudius, she spawns as a 5-year-old instead of a newborn, and her family's dirt poor instead of being related to the nobility. Although that quickly changes once she decides to lock in after discovering that no books exist. So she decides to invent the printing press and paper and innovate the field of inking. Not the most exciting premise, but you'd be surprised at how exciting it is to watch kids invent books from scratch and all the trial and error they go through. Later on, the story becomes much more about Rosemine trying to navigate through fantasy high society, which is pretty exciting in its own way. It's kind of similar to That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime and Wataoshi in that sense, except that, unlike those two, Rosemine's knowledge of the modern world is much more plot relevant, because the story kind of revolves around it, as well as the differences in culture between the protagonist and the other people who are part of the culture of the world of Jürgen Schmidt. The story is all about how different places create different people with different values and how those values clash and stuff, and how people bridge those differences in values. Pretty cool stuff to see, especially because the story shows you through Rosemine's eyes these differences in values and stuff, as she has to adapt to them because of how much she has to move through all these different cultures against her will, that is. She never chose to become a noble, she kinda had to do it so her family didn't get executed. Whoops, spoilers. It's a little like Tensura in that sense, because Rimuru also kind of has to navigate the world as he and his kingdom gain power and stuff. And it's all really great because the world in this series feels really alive and immersive. There really is a lot of thought put behind it. I'm glossing on a lot of cool things about this series, but it's kind of hard to be concise when what you're discussing is a 33-volume series. It may also just be the most BookTok-esque light novel of all time. It's got everything BookTokers love, from tropes and moments that feel straight out of Tumblr posts, to a non-insignificant amount of romance between teenage girls and adult men, sometimes old enough to be their parents. And although the world building justifies it, and it's sometimes portrayed as bad, sometimes it's not, and frankly it kinda weirds me out a little. The rest of the series is pretty good though. This one's definitely my favorite light novel out of all the ones I've talked about today. I don't know how to end this video. Take care, and remember to brush your teeth before sleeping and listen to some Shibuya Kei or something. See you on the next one, if there's a next one, and